Welcome to No Compromises, a peek into the mind of two old web devs who have seen some things. This is Joel.
And this is Aaron.
Um, hey Aaron, I really don't have time to record the podcast today. Can we push it off to another week and then maybe miss a week and never do it?
Oh, what the fuck?
I'm joking. We are recording and we're going to keep recording, but this was it was a recent tip I wrote. And I maybe alluded, it was around planning and review, and I alluded to the concept of we don't have time to do everything we want, which I think is true. And I don't think you
Mhm.
dispute that, but you kind of said, Joel, you're going a little soft on this tip. You should tell people to just do the thing and don't make excuses. Am I characterizing our discussion correctly?
Yeah, I mean, you made me sound so much nicer, which I
Oh,
appreciate.
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I said don't be so soft to everyone. I really hate when people say I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
It's like I think about this example, all these different proverbs, and you hear them all the time. So I'll just give you one, but it's like the idea of hey, I'm calling you to give you a check for $100,000 if you just drive over here. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm too busy picking up these $1 bills. It's like,
Okay.
what,
Right.
what, come on. There's just look at this opportunity. This person is giving you an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I get frustrated when I hear people respond to good advice. Oh, I
Mhm.
don't have time to do that though. If I only had the time to do that,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so first of all, that person, they're giving you that advice. I mean, obviously you can argue on the internet. They're giving you that advice because they want clicks and all that kind of stuff. They want money.
Sure.
But in reality, a lot of people are giving you advice because they want something good for you. They want you to experience something positive.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I want to narrow it because everything we're talking about is absolutely true and it applies broadly in life. But I think maybe the place you and I feel it the most viscerally is advice on a project, and especially when we're hired to work on a project, and we're like, if you do this thing, it's going to make your life easier, and then we hear, well, we don't have time, and you know what, we'll get into the nuances of what actually is meant that is said. Maybe the answer is not to do the thing we're recommending, but framing it as a lack of time, I think, is what sets you off and also sets me off because it is not addressing what actual decision is being made. And it feels more I'll just add my opinion on this. It feels like, oh, I can't do anything about that. Whereas you really are in control of that decision. It's not something out of your control.
I sort of cut myself off and stopped what I was saying because I thought of something evil. That is something evil for you, Joel, which is
Okay.
I know which direction you're trying to go with this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to sidetrack you and I'm going to turn it around on you.
All right.
So here's some behind the scenes. The idea for our podcast topic is we want to talk about hey, you should do these things because they're going to save you time in the long run.
Yeah.
An argument against time and whatnot. But one of the things that we kind of talked about was, is it important to you? Are you
Mhm.
lying to yourself when you
Yeah.
say you don't have time? Is the answer that you're really saying it's not important? And I'm sorry, I gave away the whole show, Joel, but it's really because what I want to do is I want to say something different. I want to turn it around on us. We didn't sell the value of the item that we suggest strong enough for the
Ooh.
person to see the time saving.
Okay. I can accept that.
So we're here saying hey, you need to do this thing. It's going to save you time, and they're saying we
Yeah.
don't have time to do it. What maybe my example isn't good enough for the $100,000 versus I'm picking up the $1 bills because a person's like, well, if I pick up enough $1 bills, I'll get to $100,000. And I know if I do this one thing over and over and over, I know I can get there. Where I might get into a car accident over there or something.
Okay.
So really, maybe we haven't sold it good enough. Maybe it's the value is so high, it's $1 billion. Here's your $1 billion
Ooh.
check, or you can pick up this one thing. So maybe it's our fault that we haven't been selling, or our fault, or other people's fault, right?
Yeah.
But people are giving the tip; they haven't been selling the time saving feature enough.
I can accept that. And honestly, I think the $100,000 versus $1, I think is still pretty clear cut. But when you expand it to a billion, it becomes even more obviously clear cut. I think there's very few things that clear cut in life, though, especially when you're talking about like improving process on a project or things like that. So I'll accept your premise that the person making the request could do better, but I think it's also important to address like there's an underlying emotional context or mental context that needs to be addressed because I still want to go back to the fact it really is not about time, it's about priority, right? Like you would agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I'm not willing to let us off the hook yet.
Okay. Yeah. So do you have a suggestion on how we could present it better? Or you want me to try to come up with a scenario?
Well, I think I'm using us as an example,
Yeah.
and so some of these things may not always be 100% apropos to us. But I think about people who now present the item and they want to say, "Here is such a valuable thing." Are they being vulnerable enough with how bad it was for them before they did this thing?
Okay.
So when you start to feel the value of a thing that saved you time and given you such great things,
Yeah.
you can't help but be that person now. It is quality and saving time and everything looks great. And
Yeah.
sometimes even in the past, the way you describe the past even sounds better than what it was. And so when we start to give this advice to someone, you can start thinking about it like, oh, well, maybe Joel and Aaron had most of their stuff together already. And then they're giving us this idea of how to get to 98% to 100%. And
Yeah.
that's great, but they don't understand. I'm here at 25%. I'm trying to even get to 50%. That's not what we're talking about. Everywhere
Okay.
works.
Yeah, vulnerability is a good word for that. And I'm actually thinking to that specific tip I wrote that went live today, or when we're recording this. Um, I didn't really set up the past world, right? I talked about it in generalities, but I didn't say here was my before state. Now I did this thing. Here's my after state. And like I can see what you're saying, like how it would really strengthen the argument of like why this is valuable to get more specific about how I personally benefited from it.
It's like when I did some research on, different investments and stuff
Mhm.
like that you might do too. And it was so frustrating when you see someone that doesn't remember like how I got my first investment property or something like that. And they're like, oh, well, once you have seven, you can use them to get 27. It's like,
Right.
yeah, yeah, okay. But how do I start from the beginning? And so I think sometimes when we talk about these time saving things, it looks like such a jump, but really that time saving thing gives you that huge jump because everyone was where you are at.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw something else out and tell me if this is in the same vein because I think it is, but I want to get your take on it, which is when you're describing the benefits and the after state to be vulnerable and realistic there too because if you oversell it you might think you're encouraging them to do it but then if they try it and they don't get like that
Hmm.
amazing vision of what you said happened they'll just give up, right? So I think there's a line of like this made my life better, here's why, but it's still not perfect, just so you don't think this is going to solve all your problems.
Right.
Do you agree that's like still a valuable part of the discussion?
Exactly. Because that's the
Okay.
other half of what I was talking about. It's like you
Okay.
might forget how bad it was.
Yeah.
And because everything is a rosy, so exciting, you might even, it's so easy to paint it even more exciting and more great.
Yeah, which is not realistic, and that's why people give up. Because maybe my tip will convince somebody to try. Because it was like I was talking about a quarterly and a weekly
Mhm.
planning process that I use. Maybe they'll even try it for like 1 or 2 quarters. I'm like, yeah, that's a little better, but I don't know. And like, so if I oversell it, it could actually have the negative effect that I'm trying to avoid.
So I just want to make it clear though that I have been taking a lot of the blame onto us. And I know that Joel, you had started out and I kind of gave away some of the details of where the podcast was going to go, but
Yeah.
I look at it as just a summary, a teaser for really part two, which is coming out pretty soon, which is like, okay, so we did sell it. What's your responsibility now?
A cliffhanger. I love it. I recently spent a little time in nature. Aaron, I actually took a trip away from home and did not bring my
Mhm.
laptop. So I first of
Good.
all, before I go on, I want praise from you for doing that.
Good job.
Thank you. So as I'm sitting in nature, just like I was maybe reading a book or whatever, but we were literally in the woods and there were squirrels, right? And I just thought like watching the way they move, I have a question for you. Have you ever seen a squirrel just like walk somewhere? Have you paid attention to squirrels?
No. The only ones I've seen walk were chipmunks.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
For a
they
second,
were
I'm
on
like,
their way. Oh, they were on their way to rescue someone.
oh my goodness. Okay. I'm asking for that. Okay, but anyways, like a squirrel, it wants to go from here to like 1 foot away. It doesn't walk. It like jumps, right? Like they leap. And I was just like, at first I'm like, man, why do they do that? But then my wife is like, well, if they did just walk, it would look kind of weird. And I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, if you just saw like a squirrel walking calmly, it would be a little bit weird, I think.
Well, no, it's because uh, there's a difference in the size of the animal versus its speed, right? And so what we see as jumping and running is just normal speed for it because it's so small. So if we were seeing it walking normal, our speed, it'd be like walking in slow motion. It'd be doing a Baywatch sort of walk. It'd be doing sexy squirrel walk. And I don't think that's what we want.
We definitely don't. But see, this is why I bring these topics to you, Aaron, because you just always help me get clear on it.
I know you don't have a lot of time, so just listen to part 2.